you are. Sacred love is all that you are.
Nice job, everybody. We're going to sing one more warm-up song this morning. And that will be I Will Follow You. Hang on just a moment. Nicely done, ladies and gentlemen. We'd like to welcome to the stage this morning a first-time platform assistant. Please give it up for Chris.
Good morning, and welcome everyone to Unity Spiritual Center, where we are all about transforming lives and inspiring people to make a positive difference. My name is Chris Porter, and I am the platform assistant this morning, as Sean has said. Please take a moment now and silence your cell phones. We want to begin our time together by sharing our opening affirmation. I will say it once and then ask you to repeat it with me. There is only one presence and one power active in my life and in the universe, God the Good.
There's only one presence and one power active in my life and in the universe, God the Good.
This is Unity's foundation principle. One presence, one power, one life, living through and as each one of us. This morning we will hear from Dr. Jane, who will be sharing the Sunday message, and Dr. Gary will be leading the meditation. We're being blessed musically this morning by Sean and Tawny Wright as we stand and sing our community song.
Please stand if you can, but sing God You Are.
Sunday morning announcements. In a recent investigation just concluded by the FBI, it was discovered that summer is just about here. Because of summer's arrival, we'll be moving to one service starting Father's Day, June 17th. That one service will start at 10 a.m. and will continue on for the rest of the summer. That's 10 a.m. starting June 17th and running through September 9th. In a key announcement, Unity Spiritual Center would like to thank the people who brought treats today. We asked people who have only been married once to bring snacks, and we would like to take this opportunity to thank all 4 people who qualified. In addition, it is Frida Morgenstern's 80th birthday today, and she brought cake for everybody. Next week, we're asking dog owners to bring treats. That's right, anybody who owns a dog or whoever has owned a dog, please bring treats next Sunday. And then in 2 weeks, it will be cat owners. In a more serious announcement, hate crimes have been on the rise for the last 18 months. Blatant discrimination of all types has increased. So in our continuing efforts to walk the talk of inclusiveness and non-discrimination, Unity will take part in the Pride Week events that are coming up in June. On Tuesday, June 5th, there will be an interfaith service at 7 p.m. It'll take place downtown. And on Saturday, June 9th, Unity will march in the Pride Parade along with hundreds and hundreds of other people and organizations. If you'd like more information, please see me right after the service because I'm coordinating. And there's a sign-up sheet on the desk, too. This year's slogan for Pride Week is now more than ever. So please join us because we'd love to see a huge participation from Unity. Last year we had 15 people who marched in the parade. Let's see if we can hit 50 this year. Now more than ever. And in one of the top stories of the day, we'd like to announce that we are putting together a welcome team. Their job? Inside informants. Tell us that their job is to welcome first-time visitors, make them feel at home, and let them know that this is the very place they've been searching for. We're looking for 16 people who would like to be welcomers. And in addition to that, we'd like to have another 8 people who would be willing to work our brand new welcome and information desk. In fact, it's so brand new, we haven't put it together yet. But their job will be to provide information to first-time visitors about the church and volunteer opportunities. So if you'd like to serve on the new welcome team, please see Carolyn Coleman or Frida Morgenstern. Carolyn and Frida, if you're here, would you stand? There's Frida. Okay. And I know Carolyn said she was going to be a little bit late today. So.
She's getting the cake.
Getting the cake, right? So see Frida after the service. And in addition to that, you can sign up for the new welcome team by our brand new bulletin board that's right next to the doors leading out to the prayer garden. So check it out and sign up. On that bulletin board, there's beautiful shots of the landscaping team. 2 other items. Annette Gorsuch is missing her cane, which has been all over the world with her. So if you happen to see it, please turn it into Lost and Found in the bookstore. And the second comment is that there are still several silent auction items that are available to bid, and that'll be until 12:30 today. And that's the announcements for Sunday, May 20th, and that's the way it is.
I'll take that. Return this. All right, this is a center update with Dr. Gary, an opportunity for me to share a bit about what happens behind the scenes, things that aren't necessarily apparent via our community announcements. First of all, I'd just like to mention, as you know, we're in the process of live streaming, and so I would like everybody to turn around and face the cameras and wave to everybody at home. Hello! All right. Jan, you have to wave. All right. So David Lineweber is going to be talking about live streaming and having a lot more to say about that during next week's Center Update. But also want to mention that as you probably noticed, Chris and Amber and some others will be sharing our platform as our platform assistants. And so we're in a process now of welcoming new participants as we live stream. We want to share the experience of being so famous. I mean, just think what it's going to do to your resumes and your career to be able to be a part of this experience for everybody. So we appreciate your efforts, and isn't it fun to be able to have new folks come in and kind of share their gifts and their talents? So we really appreciate that. And so also today we're going to be introducing a new segment. In just a moment I'm going to be asking Dr. Jim Sledge to come up and share this with me. But we're wanting to introduce now, and on behalf of our Board of Trustees, a regular segment, at least once a month, that really talks about how we as your leadership are creating a sustainable future for Unity Spiritual Center. And as I've mentioned in previous talks, we're in the process of evolving our ministry, moving out of a minister-centric ministry practice into a mission-centric ministry practice. And along with that comes evolving out of the old funding model, which is unsustainable, the tithing funding model, to an ownership-based funding model, which means that we build our sense of of community and sustainability on the principle that when we all own what we're trying to create together, there's more than enough to accomplish our purpose. And so please, Jim, share this information with our folks, because what we're really wanting to convey is that the board has arrived at a place where the patterns in this church, the years of this church of dealing with not enough, our effort is to make that old news. And to that aim, we want to share, I think, with the community what we have arrived at as our new position and where we're wanting the community to really have a sense of confidence and value in where we're headed as the leadership of the church. So,
good morning. So your board has recognized that perhaps one of the patterns that hasn't worked in the past is the principle of just tithing. Some people are very comfortable with it, some people don't feel comfortable with it. But doing the same thing the same way time and time again and expecting a different result is that's the definition of insanity. And we certainly don't want to be in that position. So your board has adopted a new pattern that we hope everybody will see as the way forward. And this is the statement pattern that we have adopted as a board of directors. So what we'll be doing is not asking so much for you to give more, but to buy into the idea of ownership. And in doing so, recognizing this is your community, and therefore you are going to want to be more in ownership and give what you can and do what you can to make sure that we are successful. So my job as your treasurer, I see, is really kind of twofold. One is to make sure we have an accurate budget that reflects the true cost of doing business, if you will, and then to give periodic reports on how we are doing. So I don't want you to get all nervous and jerky just because I'm up here.
that's right.
I want you to be able to sense that we're just tracking how we're doing and letting you know how we're doing. I mean, if you look at your own budget, or if you have stocks and bonds, or if you belong to different communities, you'll know that it's important to be able to track things and see how we're doing. So please don't take it as anything negative when I'm up here or Carrie's up here talking about money. We're not trying to necessarily get much more, but we want you to be more involved and to buy into the ownership model of this. We know that if everybody would take into consciousness what they can do, there is far more than enough to make this meet our needs. So at that point, all of the sort of fundraisers that we do, the fun fundraisers like the Billboard Show and like Sacred Rubble, all of those things can be put to something different, some different things that we can do in our community to make our community better. And goodness knows there's a lot to be done. So if we can then make sure that everybody is in ownership and doing what he or she can, those funds can do something more fun. So we hope that you understand what we're trying to do. And if you have any questions, please come chat with us. But again, our goal here is to make sure that ownership is the key to our financial health.
Right, and then our effort is to partner with you as the community, because we want to treat you all as adults. And most churches that are struggling, all churches that are struggling, have to have some strategy or plan to coax out more from the community. And we don't want to follow that pattern. We want to create something new. And just as we experienced over the weekend, where we had so many people from our community doing just what they can do, you know, it reminds me of the saying from the Tao Te Ching. You're familiar with the Tao Te Ching? The Tao Te Ching says, when all the people do what they can do, all things get done. And so that's what we're trying to create. That's the new model that we're trying to embody. And towards that aim, we have a request to ask if you can do something to help us out, because typically at the summertime, when everybody is off and gone. The way the church system works is that we only collect, it seems like we only receive money on Sunday, and that people only give when they're present. And so unless you're involved in an automatic giving process, then what you would normally give when you're here doesn't happen, doesn't come to us. And so typically summers become the most difficult time for churches. And so all we ask is that if you can help us during the summertime, we've arranged with Tithely, the Tithely app people, a convenient way in which you can just take control of how you want to support Unity Spiritual Center by setting up your own schedule and routine of supporting us. But if you make your gift automatic, we know that you'll be pleased to know that you're supporting us, even though that you're off and enjoying the summer as well. So we appreciate your time, and we know that those who are brand new to our service today are probably wondering why we're talking about money, but we want you to feel comfortable with how we're being with you with respect to this important issue, because we want you to see that what's going on as far as your leadership is concerned is so cool about how we're going to be with respect to managing the needs of this organization, that we're going to create in our future an experience where 100% of our operations are 100% underwritten by our owners and partners, and then whenever we take up a collection, we give it all away. What would that be like, to be the first church to do that? All right, thanks. And so let us begin our time of meditation by simply becoming aware, by simply noticing and turning our attention to our heart space. And feel the sensation of your breath as it moves with the rise and the fall. And as you just settle into the awareness of the sensation, the felt sense of your breath, connect your awareness to a feeling. Let us bring into our awareness someone or something that we appreciate. A family member, a life partner, beloved child, a pet, fond memory. Whatever carries with it the felt sense of gratitude and appreciation, let us sink our awareness in that energetic sense of openness, of aliveness, of connection, of presence, the very center of our being. And allow these feelings of appreciation and gratitude to rise up, extending beyond our physical selves, as if pouring into this room, this space, this sanctuary, so that together we create an energetic field of heart-centered coherence, a field within which we can rest and become still and enter into the deeper knowing of our connection, of our oneness, of that which moves us into the expression of who and what we've come here to be. To connect to the wellspring of awareness, of light, of understanding, of knowing. To have the ability to think, to be clear, to have insight. We open our hearts now to the deeper knowing of who we are and our capacity to be the one. And we give ourselves to that movement of spirit that right now is doing its perfect work, drawing us ever closer to the opportunities to grow beyond our yesterday self and really welcome that which is emerging, that which is calling us. And so let us listen for that voice. Let us listen and be called in the silence. Thank you, God.
In the stillness of this moment, there is peace. There is peace. In the stillness of this moment, there is peace. There is peace. And I rest and trust and breathe and know. In the stillness of this moment, there is peace. In the stillness of this moment, there is love. There is love. In the stillness of this moment, there is love. There is love. And I rest and trust and breathe and know. In the stillness of this moment, there is love.
Thank you. That's so beautiful. I love that song. Don't you love it? Well, good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Jane, and I'm an overachiever. Hi, Jane. I was waiting for some hi Janes there. There might be others of you in this room. I don't know. My talk title is Overachievers Anonymous. And if you find yourself acting like a human doing rather than a human being for much of your time, then you might find our time this morning helpful. You know, my father had a very strong work ethic. He loved working, sun up to sundown. I hardly ever saw him in the summertime. But then he would come home from work and he would see me sitting there watching TV or reading, and he would say to me, Jane, what have you done to justify your existence today? And I would give him attitude, you know, whatever, Dad. But, you know, even though I rejected that message he was getting me, some of it went in there. And of course, that's not the only place I heard it. The school system at the time certainly reinforced that idea. I once saw a bumper sticker that said, "Jesus is coming, look busy." So how many of you find your life is too busy? You have too much on your plate? Anyone? Yes. I can't tell you how many people I have talked to who have retired who say to me, you know, I thought when I retired I was going to have all this time on my hands, and now I'm so busy I don't know how I used to fit in working. Really? Our mechanized society was supposed to make life easier. Labor-saving devices were designed to create more leisure time. And have they? They have not. In fact, the opposite. This be busy story saturates our culture. We wear busyness as a badge of honor sometimes. I'm just so busy. No time. And that comes directly from the shared values of the cultural worldview we're going to talk about today. In our Evolution Revolution series, we have been climbing rung by rung up the ladder of evolving worldviews that have occurred throughout human history in different eras. And we have been using the lens and the colors of spiral dynamics to view those changes through. And we've seen how all of these cultural paradigm shifts that have occurred actually correlate to our human developmental process. That those worldviews show up in our lives as we grow older and in the same order as they showed up in history, interestingly. I find that interesting anyway. Quite fascinating. And as we grow and develop throughout our early years, we transcend, yet we include what has come before. So we bring with us what we've already been through, but we move beyond it. It's like moving up the rungs of a ladder. When you get up one more rung, you don't lose the altitude you've already gained, and yet your view widens, your perspective widens, and that's what has happened throughout our lives. This is how transformation happens. And we began, if you remember, we'll do a little review here. We began with the beige prehistoric era, where survival was the only game in town. And we related that to infancy, where our very survival rests with our caregivers. The next one, the magical and ritualistic purple tribal age, we linked to toddlerhood, that magic time, where we're finding our place in the tribe, in the family. Red, which came next, and we're talking about feudalism and personal power in history. This connects us to our own individual ego development, you know, the formation of the ego. And hopefully that was a healthy formation for us, not always though. And then the blue rule of law time period that follows this red period correlates with our school age years, where we're learning the rules. And the brules, remember what that stands for? Ready? Bull rules, yes. I didn't catch it this time. And during that time, the blue times of our lives, we learned to corral that ego, to don the mask of social acceptability. We learn the social norms and the rules. And today we step up to the next rung, which is an adaptive measure from all of those rules and regulations. It's the orange, rational, mechanistic, scientific worldview that came into being around 300 years ago with the Industrial Revolution. And what had been predominantly an agrarian, rural society now shifted to a more urban and industrial one. And this era brought the rise of Cartesian thought. I think, therefore I am. And Newtonian physics, The body is like a machine. You can put in new parts if you need to. The universe is like a clock. Body and mind are separate. This kind of thinking emerged out of this period. And so it's a time of the emergence of scientific reductionistic thought. But this time period also brought about the American Revolution and the French Revolution, and Orange is about democracy and freedom. It's about progress, optimism, innovation, aspiring to a better life. Capitalism, the free market, it's all in there. Competition, it's very orange. Orange is very goal-oriented. There's a belief that anybody can move up that corporate ladder if you're willing to play the game. Whereas blue, rule of law, uses the stick to control, orange uses the carrot to motivate. You see the difference there? Performance and rewards, striving to get ahead, to win. It's about winning. And what we're describing is the standard business model and corporate structure of the Western world. Do you follow that? Yes. But there are pitfalls with this era. There's a lack of humanistic approach. Feelings don't factor into it. You leave your feelings at home. You don't bring them to work. That kind of thought. And so there's danger in unhealthy orange of exploitation, of overconsumption, of greed and corruption, Wall Street gone wild, unregulated growth for growth's sake without regard for the consequences to the environment. Does any of that sound familiar? Yes. So on one hand, we have a progressive, optimistic striving for a better life. On the other, there's a need to balance out some of the unhealthier aspects of this with compassion, with caring about the consequences, with vision, with accountability through the deeper intelligence of the heart. Now, in our human development, this is the time of adolescence, where we are learning to cultivate critical thinking, rational thought. It's about achievement, exploration with the ability to imagine new possibilities, and the belief that we can cause change to happen. See, change my thinking, change my life. Very orange. Orange is very enterprising. So beige says, I will survive. Purple, I belong. Red, I matter. Blue, I do the right thing. Orange says, I strive. I can do it. Now, this emergent worldview is an adaptive result of busting out of the conformity of those blue traditional years. Orange takes those blue rules and explores them. We get to the age where we start questioning authority, re-examining some of the stories, the traditional stories we've been told in the past. Like, wait, you mean there was a flood that covered the entire earth? That's a whole lot of water. And everybody except Noah's family died? I mean, what about babies and all the animals? They didn't do anything wrong. And then wait, after the flood, where did all of Noah's sons' wives come from all of a sudden? See, so we start, the literalism of blue comes under scrutiny in orange. And effectiveness replaces morals as the yardstick to measuring our success. Instead of, I'm breaking the rules, it's like, well, wait a minute, why do we do that? Why do we follow that rule? Does it work? Why are we doing that? So it's a great time of exploration in our lives. And it's not unusual during this period of our lives to begin poking holes in previously accepted truth handed down by those in charge. But there's a dissonance that happens because we have this brain map that has been created from those years of learning societal rules, and now a desire to bust out of that mental rut and think in a new way. Because here's what can happen during those blue rules, years of learning the rules, that we can learn what to think, but not necessarily how to think. And so this can be a challenge for us to start thinking differently during this period of our lives. And for me, that happened in a very stressful and very unwelcome way. When I was a teenager growing up in Canada, my country betrayed me in a way that took me years to get over it. Are you ready to hear this tale of woe and betrayal? It's called the metric system. Whoa. The whole country just went ahead and changed over to metric. I was 17 years old. I had a brain map firmly in place that I was very comfortable with, that understood Fahrenheit temperature and miles per hour and cost per gallon. All that made sense to me. And now I had to create new neural architecture that included kilometers and Celsius temperatures and liters. And it was like being forced to learn a new language. And I was angry at Canada for years for that. I complained to anybody who would listen to me. But to no avail. I had to change. So I learned to translate. You see, if someone said to you, it's 30 degrees, well, that's pretty cold. You're probably going to need a jacket or a coat, right? Well, if you're above the border and someone tells you it's 30 degrees, no, yes, it's 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And so over the years, I got pretty good at doing the converting. You see, to roughly convert it, you multiply by 2 and add 30. So that means that 30 degrees is 90. And so I sort of made peace, sort of, with the metric system. I still grumbled about it, but I could manage. I could start thinking a little bit more in metric. Now, fast forward 40 years later, when Gary and I get married and decide I'm gonna move south of the border. And suddenly, I realize there's an added bonus, as if I needed another bonus. On top of that, I get to start thinking in imperial measurement again, and I was just like, yes, oh yes, that's so great. But guess what? Because I had thought in metric for so long, I discovered that yes, I was able to, certainly I could just move back into imperial measurement. I was very comfortable with it, but that I was no longer thinking only in that way. And now I have another problem. My kids have grown up with the metric system. And they don't understand anything about, Fahrenheit. So if I'm telling them that it's 90 degrees, their eyes glaze over. They have no... So now I have to subtract 30 and divide by 2 and say, all right, I'm talking about 30 Celsius. And I realized something. I am now bilingual. I can speak both Canadian and American in measurement. I know. That rates some applause, actually. That's a big deal. Yes. But I was so surprised to see this new brain map that had been created, and I realized even at this time in my life, I can continue to change my thinking. And so can you. This is part of Orange. It's Orange that provides us with the shot in the arm to stand up and say, I can do this. I can change my thinking. I can become so much more. We have the hardwiring to do that. We're set up for it. Did you know that in London, the cab drivers have to learn to memorize a map of the entire city, 25,000 streets over, and thousands of landmarks? It can take 3 to 4 years to do it. And when they take the test, it's not unusual for them to fail 12 times before finally passing the test. But a curious thing happens as they're learning this, and that is their brain structure changes measurably. And I have a short video to show this. 2 clicks away. Oh, sorry, I was going to share that with you so that you could see this is what you have to do. Okay.
London's legendary taxi drivers are the Olympic athletes of memory. Navigating the intimidating labyrinth that is central London, they must create an intricate mental map consisting of thousands of streets, landmarks, and locations. For 150 years, every new cab driver has had to pass a grueling exam, known to Londoners simply as the knowledge. It takes most hopefuls at least 2 years to master, giving researchers a superb opportunity to look at how the brain adapts when required to retain vast amounts of information.
Thanks, mate. Can you take me to Albert Hall?
Albert Hall, yeah.
Cheers.
When somebody gets in your cab, they'll say, take me to so-and-so, and it's got to be like that. You've got to know instantly where you're going, which way to be pointing. So there's a lot of retention. You've got to retain a lot of what you've learned as well.
Scientists suspected a particular region of the brain called the hippocampus might be the key to the taxi driver's success.
Now, run me to the nearest police station.
Or Waterloo Bridge, Old Lancaster Place.
If memory depends upon the hippocampus, at the Knowledge Point School, drivers in training surely give this part of their brain a good workout.
Dave, give me the name of a restaurant on Portland Road with a lady's name.
Chutney Mary's.
Hereford Road, where would you give me?
Veronica's.
After class, students like Andy Miller take to the streets. Since visual processing occupies more brain activity than all the other senses combined, it is not surprising that direct experience is an essential part of the knowledge training.
You start off learning all the roads, then you have to learn all the places on every road.
With all the routes that you have to do for the knowledge, you couldn't possibly do it on the map.
The hippocampus has a spatial map in it, and what seems to be happening in the taxi drivers is that a spatial map is laid down of central London, and laying this down causes the connections to develop and grow and more of them to form, and that makes the part of the hippocampus get bigger.
It's almost like you've somehow, somewhere up in your brain, you've created enough space to sort of slip this map in, a little bit of software.
This study suggests that the adult brain can refashion its basic anatomy according to the requirements of its owner. Doctors hope these insights can be used to help restore the minds of stroke victims, Alzheimer's patients, and those suffering brain traumas.
Yeah, we have that ability. Yes. Interesting. So it made me wonder how, because I seem to be very dependent on my GPS, that maybe it's time to put it away and start letting that hippocampus grow. So orange is the motivating factor behind that level of change, and it leads to transformation and actualizing so much more of our potential. And the world needs us to do that and to stop frittering away our time and energy on busy work. And there's nothing wrong with accomplishing things, with making progress, with striving for excellence and success, having goals, and actualizing a greater purpose in life. In fact, taking action is part of the spiritual path. It's one of Unity's 5 principles, being the change. The problem arises when there's no balance, when we become a human doing instead of a human being. And if our sense of self-worth is tied up in what we do, if we base our value on how many items we've crossed off on our to-do list, when we're measuring success solely by overachieving, it is not going to end well. Because along with the rise of the ability of the intellect for rational, logical thinking that emerges during this developmental stage in our life, something else comes along for the ride. It's called the judge. It's called the critical inner voice that's very quick to point out to us when we have messed up, when we don't measure up. And if you remember from the series we did on the untethered soul, it's the insane roommate that shares our inner space. Critical thinking is a very useful tool when we use it for discernment, for balancing the checkbook, for choosing what to wear based on the weather. But when it's whispering, what have you done today to justify your existence? Do you see? That's a misuse of our ability to reason. And if we have a belief that our self-worth rests on our accomplishments, and then we're not successful in reaching our goal, what's that voice going to tell us? And if that inner judge is telling us that our self-esteem rides on what we do in life, we are setting ourselves up for a world of hurt and suffering. So what is the inner judge telling you? You know, one of my favorite stories told of Jesus is from the book of John, chapter 8, when a woman is brought to him who's been caught in adultery by herself, apparently. Just let that one sit. And I can just picture everyone standing there, you know, with their rocks, ready to let them fly. And Jesus says, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone." Pretty brilliant psychology. Can you just feel how that took all the air out of that moment of superiority and judgment? That's what's known in educational circles as a teachable moment. And the reason I love this story so much is not because it turns the tables on the accusers. Well, maybe I do like that part. But more so because it shows such effective thinking outside the box, married with deep compassion. I mean, after everyone leaves, he says to the woman, "Where are your accusers?" She says, "They're gone." And then he says to her, "Neither do I condemn thee." That's the part that just opens my heart in gratitude. Can you feel the relief in that? Neither do I condemn thee. And when we look at this metaphysically, it's our own heart that says that to us. It's our higher self that says with such love, "Neither do I condemn you." And that's the antidote to the critical voice. Because the truth is that that voice is simply a very misguided attempt to protect us. It's a defensive strategy. This voice says with some dubious logic, if I beat myself up, what? Nobody else can say anything worse to me. So the antidote is to ask our heart, to consult a higher authority, not the insane roommate for guidance. Stop listening and believing what the judgmental, critical voice is blathering on about, and recognize that it's not telling the truth. It's not telling the truth. Our thoughts can be faithful servants or tyrannical masters. So we want to stop believing them and instead listen to the heart. To listen to that part of us that is divine love, our very divine essence. Listen to it. It does not condemn. And so the Q process can help us with that, to lovingly silence that insane roommate with compassion, self-compassion. It's so important to feel self-compassion. And as we do this work, we clean up and we heal any childhood wounds that have been lurking in our psyche, and then the lens we're looking through gets less cloudy. The viewpoint that we look through widens. And that's pretty cool. We release psychological energy that may have been locked up, and we get on with what we're truly here to do, because that other stuff is weighing us down if we're not. I read about a man who had a job working in software, and he was very good at what he did. But he realized one day in the middle of a meeting that he didn't care at all about this work. It wasn't what he was truly here to do. And he wondered to himself, when do I get to live my life instead of the one I'm being paid to live? Wow. And that's not to say that we should all go out and quit our jobs. Staff here, please don't do that. It also doesn't mean that we all hate our jobs. I love my job. But if we're measuring the value of our life by how busy we are missing the real treasure, which is the now moment. It's the joy inherent in every single moment. We're missing what we're really here to be and to do. And I love the way Richard Rohr describes it. We are God-godding. We are God-godding. We are divinity expressing. We are singularizations of the singularity. In other words, we're individualizations of the one presence, knowing ourselves, our true selves, in our own experience. And we're here to lavish the gifts of spirit on the world and truly make the difference. Do you know that about yourself?
Yes.
And as luck would have it, the possibility to do that rests right here, right now, in this now moment. Just as we transcend and include each of these developmental stages throughout our lives, we also transcend and include every second of our life. Throughout this service today, you and I are transcending and including each moment as it ticks on by. And if we're not cleaning up those pain points from the past, we're dragging them with us. And on the other hand, if we're always striving for a better future than this moment, then we're not living our lives. We're absent. Life can only be lived in the present moment, right now. And no moment is unimportant. The practice is to bring awareness to the moment. Trade patience for presence. And in that presence, you'll discover the truth that you're not alone on this journey. Trust that the greater mind that you're a part of has your back. Neither do I condemn thee. Has your back in whatever you strive to do. The Jewish rabbi Baal Shem Tov said, "Let me fall if I must, the one I am becoming will catch me." So I invite all of us overachievers to take time in the stillness, to listen to the loving voice of the infinite presence. It's within your heart, and it whispers to you of your value and your worth, no matter what you accomplish or do not accomplish. Let its power lift you up. Feel the divine motivation that comes from trusting in the greater self to carry and guide you. Ask your heart for the truth. And above all, rejoice in gratitude with me that the metric system is safely north of the 49th parallel. God bless.
All right, is this on? Okay. Unity stands for peace in the presence of conflict, for love in the presence of hatred, for forgiveness in the presence of injury. Unity honors the many names for God, the many paths to God, for we know that there is only one power, one presence, one life. So whoever you are and wherever you are on your journey of transformation, you are welcome here. We would especially like to welcome anyone who is here for the first time. If this is your first time visiting with us and you feel comfortable raising your hand, our ushers have a gift packet for you. Is anyone here? Great. And in the back there as well. And over here. Excellent. Well, welcome. On the outside of the packet, there's a form you can fill out to be added to our mailing list for weekly e-news update and for the quarterly newsletter. If you're interested, please fill it out and drop it in the love offering bag as it comes around instead of feeling obligated to give a donation. Also, after the service, you can take the packet to the barista stand and get a free beverage of your choice, and you can take it to the bookstore and get a CD of today's Sunday talk. We are glad you're here. Now it's time to welcome and greet each other with a handshake, a hug, a high five, a wave, a namaste, whatever works for you. We begin with our welcome song.
Great, stand up if you can. We're going to sing the gathering song.
We
Well, good morning again. This is a time in our service where we acknowledge and say thank you for your gifts, your symbols, financial symbols of your ownership. For we know we're all connected in this wonderful unity community. So if you would take and hold in consciousness your gifts, and let's share our prosperity blessing together. I know that my giving blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, and all that I give and receive. I give thanks for the abundance that is mine to share, and so it is.
Love is but a song we sing. Here's the way we'll die. You can make the mountains ring, or make the angels cry. Oh, love is on the wing. You may not know why.
give thanks for these gifts and for those who have given them as we send them forth to bless our world. And so it is. And as we are giving thanks for the gifts we are receiving at Unity Spiritual Center, we want to take time to thank all those in service to our ministry. Today we are saying thank you to all donators and volunteers involved in the Sacred Rebel event. So if you would, just stand up if you're able and comfortable. Show your involvement in the event. We just want to celebrate that. We're grateful for your service. Our chaplains today, would our chaplain come up front? Two chaplains. And it's Ocean, and then and Julia. They've been holding the entire service in prayer, which one or both of our chaplains does every service. If you have anything that is heavy on your heart or that you would like to celebrate, you can pray with one of our chaplains and they will hold it in prayer with you. They will be at the front of the sanctuary right after service. Thanks so much for your service, guys. You can also fill out a prayer request form found in the seat pocket in front of you and put it in one of the prayer boxes. There's one at the front of the sanctuary and one in the foyer. Our prayer team will pray with you for 7 days, and then the prayers will be sent on to Silent Unity to be prayed over for 30 days. And if you know someone who's in the hospital and has requested a visit from one of the chaplains, please fill out the visitation request form in the seat back pocket and place it in the prayer box. Do we have kids today? All right, well, let's welcome them in with Walking in the Light.
We are singing for His joy is our life. We are singing for His joy is our life. We are singing for His joy is our life. We are singing for His joy is our life. We are singing, oh, we are singing for His joy is our life. We are singing, oh, we are singing for His joy is our life. We are singing for His joy is our life. We are singing for His joy is our life. We are singing for His joy is our life.
All right, has everyone found a seat? We are grateful for all of our young people here at Unity Spiritual Center. Let's take a moment to bless our children, youth, and those in service to our youth ministry.
Be loved who you are, sing the song you hear, share your joy of life with people far and near.
And for ourselves,
Be the love we are, sing the song we hear, share our joy of life with people far and near.
all right, you can go with who you came with. And we will stand together as we are able and join for our closing prayer, followed by the peace song. Stand as you are able and join us for the closing prayer.
The light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And that's the truth.
Peace on earth, what we
So to all of our overachievers, you get the rest of the day off.